A child sat shivering, small knees drawn to her chest, arms wrapped around a thin frame, barely held together by a torn red sweater. Her name was Ava, 6 years old, hair tangled into knots, cheeks raw from wind and cold. She didn't cry anymore. She had run out of tears. The only sound she made was the faint hum of a song her mother used to sing. The words caught in her throat, crumbled into the white air. The porcelain doll she carried, cracked down the cheek, its painted smile chipped, was pressed tightly against her heart. She whispered to it sometimes, pretending her voice was enough to make the silence less cruel. From the far end of the road came a crunch of boots and the steady rhythm of paws pressing into ice. Sergeant Jacob Flynn had walked these forgotten roads for months, searching for survivors, avoiding the broken remnants of a world that no longer cared. He was in his early 40s now, face carved with lines deeper than his years, his camouflage uniform worn thin in places. In his hand he carried a simple keepsake, a silver locket that he often rubbed with his thumb until the skin turned raw. Inside was a photograph, his wife and son, both lost to illness while he was still serving abroad. Before we begin, let me know where you are watching from. Leave your country name in the comments below. And if you love stories about courage, loyalty, and community, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next stories. Beside him padded his only constant, his partner in every way that mattered, Rex, a German Shepherd K9 whose loyalty had pulled Jacob back from the edge more times than he could count. Rex moved like a shadow, alert to every sound, yet always attuned to Jacob's smallest gestures. One glance, a single hand signal, and the dog knew what to do. Jacob was the first to see the child. He stopped cold, one hand instinctively tightening on the strap of his rucksack. Rex froze with him, ears pricked forward, tail low but steady. At first, Jacob thought he was seeing a mirage, just another ghost that the snow liked to carve in his mind. But then the figure shifted, a real child, too small, too fragile to be out here alone. Jacob stepped forward cautiously, boots crunching in the ice. "Hey," he called softly, his voice rough from disuse. Ava looked up. Her eyes were wide, glassy pools filled with sorrow far too heavy for a 6-year-old. She clutched the doll closer, not answering, only shrinking into herself. Jacob crouched, lowering his height so he didn't tower above her. Rex moved with him, sitting calmly at his side, tail brushing the snow once in reassurance. Jacob lifted both hands slowly, palms open. "It's all right," he said gently. "We won't hurt you." The girl's lips trembled. For a long moment, silence swallowed them all again. Then in the smallest whisper, Ava spoke. "Please, don't leave me here." Jacob felt the words strike deep, like an echo from his own past. Remembered the night he got the call about his family, how helpless he had felt oceans away, how the silence afterward had almost broken him. He had begged the empty air then too. "Don't leave me here." He swallowed hard, forcing the memory back down. "I won't," he said firmly. Rex leaned forward, nose twitching. The dog nudged Ava's hand gently with his muzzle, sensing her fear. She blinked at him, startled, then tentatively touched his head. For the first time in weeks, her small fingers relaxed their death grip on the doll. Jacob watched as Rex lay down in the snow beside her, a silent guardian. The child's shoulders loosened just a fraction. Jacob knew what Rex was saying in his own way. "She's ours now. Protect her." Jacob reached into his rucksack and pulled out a blanket, draping it gently over her thin frame. Ava's lips parted in a gasp as warmth settled across her shoulders. She whispered something then, too faint at first. Jacob leaned closer. "I was waiting for Daddy." Her voice cracked. "Mama said he'd come back, so I came here to find him." The porcelain doll slipped from her arms, falling into the snow with a soft thud. Jacob's eyes locked on it, his chest tightening. He thought of his locket, of the faces he would never see again. He reached out, brushing snow from the doll, then placed it gently back in Ava's arms. He looked at her then, really looked, and felt his knees weaken. Not from fatigue, from recognition. Because the name Ava whispered next, her father's name, was one Jacob knew all too well. The wind shifted, flipping the blanket edge and stinging Jacob's cheek with fine needles of snow. Ava's lips trembled as she leaned closer, her voice a thread about to snap. "My daddy's name is Micah Hale." The world narrowed to a pinprick. Jacob's breath hitched, and for a second his knees nearly gave. Micah Hale, the medic who had wrapped Jacob's shredded shoulder in a sun-blind courtyard overseas, the man who always carried extra gauze and bad jokes, who mailed postcards to a wife, and the baby whose sonogram he folded into his helmet liner. Micah, whose last act had been to shove Jacob behind a broken wall and say, "You're not dying on my watch, Sarge." Micah, who never made it out. Jacob swallowed hard, the taste of grit and antiseptic flashing through memory. He stared at the girl, at the two familiar eyes, hazel, warm even when glassed by cold. He'd seen those eyes in a dog-eared photo 100 times. "You knew him?" Ava asked, as if afraid the answer might change her world again. Jacob found his voice. "Yes," he said, the word thick. "He was my friend. Your father was the bravest man I knew." Ava's face lifted, the road's cruelty loosening its hold for a heartbeat. She hugged the cracked porcelain doll as if bracing herself against hope. "Mama said he helped people, that he always would." "He did," Jacob said. "He
still does," he didn't add, "because I'm breathing." He didn't add the image that lived behind his eyes like a scar. Micah kneeling in dust, the sharp clap of gunfire, the way time can splinter a life into before and after. Rex shifted, reading the change in Jacob's scent, in the rhythm of his heart. The canine pressed his shoulder into Jacob's thigh, steady, here, now, then eased forward to nuzzle Ava again, drawing her back from the cliff of asking too much. She buried her fingers in Rex's ruff, and the dog accepted the weight of her small hand like a covenant. Jacob pulled off one glove and fished the silver locket from under his collar. The hinge stuck, then yielded with a soft click. He held it so Ava could see the tiny photo inside, a laughing woman and a boy in a striped shirt. "This is my family," he said quietly. "They're not here anymore. Your father kept me alive when I wanted to follow them. I owe him everything." Ava's gaze flicked between the faces and Jacob's. "Then, if you knew Daddy, does that mean you can help me find him?" The question landed with the gentleness of snow and the force of a landslide. Jacob's throat tightened. He'd spent years choosing silence over truth, because truth felt like detonating the same grief again and again. But the road had given him a child who deserved more than lies. He crouched until his eyes were level with hers. "Ava," he said, as gently as he knew how, "your dad, Micah, he died a hero. He saved lives. He saved mine." The words scraped his insides raw. "He can't walk down this road to meet you, but I swear to you, if he could, he would run." The hope in her face quivered and fell like an icicle shaken loose. She bowed her head, hair curtaining her cheeks. For a long moment there was only the wind and the faint creak of the blanket fabric where her fingers found the edge and held on. Then she did something Jacob didn't expect. She lifted the doll to her ear as if listening, nodded once, and whispered, "Okay." She looked up, eyes swollen but steady. "If Daddy can't come, then can you take me to where he is? I want to tell him my song." Jacob felt something shift beneath his ribs, an old door unsticking. "I can take you to his resting place," he said, "and I can tell you how he laughed, how he talked about you and your mum like the sun rose because they asked it to." Ava's mouth puckered at the word resting, then smoothed. "Mama said heaven is like warm hands." Jacob exhaled, a fog of grief and gratitude. "She sounds like someone your father would have loved forever." Rex's head snapped toward the ditch then, ears pricked, tail lifted at a focus point on the tree line. A low growl rolled through his chest. Jacob read the signal instantly. Movement at 2 o'clock, distance close, intent unknown. He stood, tucking the locket back beneath his collar. "On me," he told Rex, a whisper layered.
With command, the dog pivoted, placing himself between Ava and the trees, body long and low, eyes bright as knives. "Is it bad?" Ava asked, fingers tightening on the doll, until the porcelain chirped. "Maybe," Jacob said. "We're not waiting to find out." He slid his pack off and pulled a foil blanket, wrapping it tight around Ava's shoulders on top of the wool. "Heat now," explanations later. "We need shelter. There's a service station a half-mile up. Think you can walk?" "I can," she said, and then softer. "If Rex goes first." "He'll lead," Jacob said. "I'll be right behind." They moved as a small, precise unit, Rex breaking trail with sure paws, Ava stepping in his prints, Jacob closing, eyes sweeping the tree line in practiced arcs. The sky had that flat, bruised look that meant more snow, the kind that erased footprints and choices both. Wind combed the drifts into new shapes. Somewhere in the white behind them, a branch broke with a sound like a shot. Rex paused, nostrils working, then quickened his pace. Ava matched him gamely, breath puffing. Twice she stumbled, twice Jacob's hand steadied her before she fell. The second time, she glanced back at him, surprised. "You catch fast," she said. "I had a good teacher," Jacob answered, and though the words were light, the name in his head was heavy. Micah. They reached the service station, a squat brick box tucked against a stand of trees, its windows boarded, a corrugated awning sagging under white. Jacob tested the door. It held. He scanned for footprints, none fresh, and drew his multi-tool to work the lock. A minute later, the bolt surrendered with a thump. Inside smelled of cold oil and old rubber, but it was dry. He found a corner shielded from the door, spread another blanket, and eased Ava down. Rex stationed himself at the threshold, head between paws, watching the world like a paid debt. Jacob coaxed a small stove to life and set a tin of broth. The flame's blue kiss chased back the room's grey. "Sip slow," he said when he put the cup in Ava's hands. She obeyed, the heat bringing colour to her lips. "Where's your mom now?" he asked softly. Ava stared into the steam. "Sleeping," she said, the word too careful. "She said she had to rest long. She said when I heard the road singing, I should follow it and I'd find someone kind." Ava lifted the doll, then tucked it under her chin. "I waited a long time. The snow hurt, but I waited anyway." The phrase, "someone kind," landed like a verdict Jacob didn't know how to earn. He glanced at Rex, the dog, flicked his ears without looking away from the door, as if to say, "Do the next right thing." Jacob reached into his pack and pulled out a narrow plastic tube, the kind medics use for IDs, and a laminated card inside, Sergeant Micah Hale, field medic. He'd carried it since the day he'd packed the last of Micah's gear for shipment home, unable to part, with the proof that the man had been more than a name in a casualty list. He slid the card free and handed it to Ava. Her fingers trembled over the print, tracing the letters like a prayer. "That's him? That's him?" A single tear slipped from the corner of her eye and dropped onto the laminate, widening into a perfect pearl before it rolled away. She looked up. Did he hear me? When I sang on the road?" Jacob could have said, "I don't know." He could have said what the world says when it wants to be safe. Instead, he let the truth he needed as much as she did rise and stand. "I think he heard every note," Jacob said. "I think he sent Rex to find you, and me." Rex made a small sound, not a bark, not a growl. Agreement, Jacob could have sworn. Ava smiled through the wet, the kind of smile that breaks your heart because it chooses to anyway. The stove hissed. Outside, the wind found new teeth. Jacob broke a protein bar, passed half to her, chewed his own like penance. Then he took the locket again, opened it, and set it beside Micah's card on the concrete. Passed and passed, shoulder to shoulder. "You said you wanted to tell your dad your song," he said. "We'll go to him when the sky clears. There's a place, quiet, with trees, that loves him. We'll bring flowers. We'll bring your song." Ava nodded. She leaned sideways until her temple found his sleeve, then let the weight of her small trust rest there. Jacob didn't move. He let it anchor him. Rex's head came up a breath later, eyes narrowing. His paw slid forward an inch, nails clicking. Contact. Jacob's hand drifted to the folding knife at his belt. From the back of the station came the faint crunch of a footstep where no foot should be, then the slow scrape of something metal dragged along brick. Ava's fingers tightened on the medic card. Her voice fell to the size of a pin. "Is it the bad men?" Jacob rose, every line of him settling into decision. He gave Ava the calm he had begged from other men once. "Maybe, but listen to me. Rex and I will stand in front. You keep hold of your song. That's your job." She swallowed, nodded hard, and whispered, "Okay." She lifted the porcelain doll and, so softly it was almost nothing, began to hum. Jacob signaled Rex, "With me, hold," and the dog flowed to his side, silent as breath, ready as winter. Another scrape. Then a voice through the wall, oily, sweet, and close. "Heard a little bird in here. You gonna share your fire?" Rex bared his teeth, white triangles in the blue light. Jacob felt the old calm fall over him. Not the empty numbness of drifting years, but the clear river that comes when you know exactly who you're standing for. He put his hand to the doorframe, felt the grain, and lifted his eyes once to Ava. She had her doll, she had her card, she had her song. "Stay behind the warmth," he said. "Don't stop singing." The knob turned from the far side with a slow, deliberate click. The station's thin air tightened to a wire. And in that thin, waiting second before the door would split the room into before and after, Ava whispered, half prayer, half plea. Two words that cleaved Jacob straight through. "Help us!" The wind outside fell silent, as if the world itself leaned in to listen. The knob rattled again, metal scraped against metal, then fell still. Whoever was outside was testing them, savoring the fear they thought would come. But Jacob Flynn wasn't a man who bent to taunts. He had bent once, 5 years ago, when he buried a family and a future in the same grave, and he had sworn never again. Not while breath and bone remained. Beside him, Rex's chest swelled with a low, steady growl, vibrating through the thin air of the service station. His ears were forward, his muscles coiled, a line of tension between duty and instinct. The canine knew the sound of danger like a song. In the corner, Ava clutched the doll against her chest. Her humming faltered but didn't stop, like a thread of light refusing to die out in the storm. The laminated medic card lay in her lap, slick with the salt of her tears. "On my count," Jacob whispered, eyes never leaving the door. Rex's tail gave one low sweep across the concrete, the only answer he needed. Outside, the voice came again. "We're cold, soldier. You going to keep the fire to yourself?" The tone was mocking, but beneath it, Jacob heard hunger, desperation, the kind that makes men reckless, the kind that ends lives. He straightened, knife in hand, shoulders set. "If you're smart," he said, loud enough to carry, "you'll walk back into the snow." A pause. Then laughter. 2, maybe 3 men. One spat against the door, the sound sharp. "Snow will kill us faster than you will. Open up." Jacob shifted, adjusting his stance so his frame covered Ava's line of sight. He knew what came next. He'd seen it in villages burned down to ash, in alleys where survival meant theft and worse. He felt Rex press closer, the dog's heat a steady counterweight to the cold spiraling in. "Stay behind Rex," Jacob said over his shoulder. Ava's eyes were wide, but she nodded. The doll in her arms seemed suddenly small, absurd against the threat outside, but she held it as if it were armor. The door jolted under a shoulder hit. Snow fell from the warped frame in a white puff. Rex barked once, thunderous, the sound filling every corner. Ava flinched, but held fast. 3, Jacob whispered, eyes locked on the doorframe. 2. The next hit splintered the wood. 1! The door burst inward. 2 men spilled across the threshold, gaunt figures in rags, knives clutched in cracked hands. Their breath steamed, their eyes gleamed with the wild edge of men who'd forgotten what mercy felt like. Rex launched first, teeth flashing, body a blur of power and precision. He hit the taller man square in the chest, driving him back into the wall with a snarl that shook dust from the ceiling. Jacob stepped into the other, arms sweeping, blade catching the weak light as he forced the man back toward the door. The intruder's knife scraped along Jacob's jacket, biting shallow. Jacob drove his shoulder forward, pinning him against the frame, the cold edge of his knife at the man's throat. "Out!" Jacob growled. "Or you don't leave at all." The man's eyes flicked past him, toward the girl. That flick was enough to sharpen Jacob's resolve into steel. He pressed harder. "Look at me! Out!" Rex's opponent screamed as the dog's jaws locked onto his arm. The sound was ragged, breaking against the concrete walls. The second man cursed, shoved once more against Jacob, then staggered back into the snow, clutching his companion. Rex released only when Jacob snapped the signal. The men vanished into the storm, their curses fading with the wind. Silence returned, fractured by Ava's trembling hum. Jacob shut the door with both hands, leaning his weight into it until the bolt clicked back into place. His breath came ragged, fogging the dim light. He turned and found Ava staring, eyes huge but unbroken. "You didn't let them take me," she whispered. Jacob knelt, knife lowered, and met her gaze. "Never," he said. "Not while I'm breathing. Your dad saved me once. Now it's my turn." She blinked, tears streaking her wind-chapped face. Then she shifted the doll, holding it out like an offering. "Then she's yours too. Daddy gave her to me. Now, she'll help you keep me safe." Jacob felt something crack open deep in his chest. He took the doll gently, the fragile porcelain cold against his palm, and returned it to her arms. "We'll keep her safe together," he said. Rex padded over, muzzle wet with snow and blood, eyes still burning. He pressed his head into Ava's side until she laughed through her tears. The sound, thin, shaken, but real, drew the first small smile Jacob had felt in years. The storm outside howled again, but inside something else had taken root. Not safety, not yet, but a promise. The little service station smelled of spent fuel and old rubber, but it had given them one thing the world outside never did: time to breathe. Yet Jacob knew it wouldn't last. The men who had fled into the snow would remember, would return, maybe with more. The storm couldn't bury danger forever. He stood, scanning the boarded windows. Rex paced near the door, restless, ears flicking at every gust of wind. Ava sat wrapped in the foil blanket, doll tight against her chest, eyes fixed on Jacob as if waiting for him to declare the world safe. It was a look he didn't know how to answer. Jacob crouched by his pack, pulling out a map, creased and patched with tape. He spread it on the dusty floor, tracing the faded lines. 20 miles north sat an old outpost, half clinic, half church, that had become a haven for scattered survivors. He'd avoided it, preferring the silence, but now silence wasn't just his anymore. He felt Ava's small hand on his sleeve. "Where are we going?" she asked. He tapped the map. "Here, a place with food, fire, and people who care." Her brows pinched. "People who care?" He nodded. "Not everyone out there is cruel. Some still hold on to what's good." Ava considered this, then glanced at Rex, who had curled close, his fur rising and falling, with slow, measured breaths. "And Rex will come too?" Jacob smiled faintly, stroking the dog's flank. "Always. He goes where I go, and I go where you do." Rex thumped his tail once as if to seal the pact. Jacob banked the stove, packed the gear with careful speed, then knelt before Ava. "It'll be hard," he said honestly. "Cold, long miles, but I'll carry you when you can't walk, and Rex will guard the rest." She held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded with a courage too big for her size. "Okay." They stepped into the storm together. Snow swept across the road, thick and blinding. Jacob pulled Ava onto his hip, blanket wrapped tight around her like armor, his other hand holding his rifle low but ready. Rex trotted at point, ears cutting through the wind, paw prints swallowed as soon as they were made. Every mile was a battle, ice clawing at Jacob's boots, wind tearing at his breath. He carried her through drifts up to his knees, pausing only to rest his arms before pressing on. She was light, almost weightless, yet heavy with the trust she had laid on him. Hours blurred. Once Ava sang faintly against his chest, the melody no louder than the snow. Jacob closed his eyes, letting it pour into the cracks he'd kept shut for years. It hurt. It healed. It reminded. When his strength flagged, Rex circled back, eyes sharp, pressing against Jacob's leg as if to lend his own. "I'm still here," Jacob muttered, more to himself than to the dog, but Rex answered with a bark swallowed by the wind. They found a hollow beneath an old bridge and stopped to rest. Jacob built a small fire shielded by stones. Ava leaned into Rex, face pale but eyes steady. "Did Daddy walk in storms like this?" she asked. Jacob's hand stilled over the firewood. "He did," he said softly, "and he never gave up, no matter how much it hurt." Ava's lips pressed tight. Then she whispered, "Then I won't give up either." Jacob looked at her, this fragile, fierce spark left to him by a man who had once dragged him out of death's reach, and felt the weight of miracle. For the first time in years, he believed again that tomorrow could matter. The fire crackled low. Outside, the storm moaned through broken beams. Jacob dozed against the wall, Rex at his side, Ava between them, her doll nestled safe in the crook of her arm. But rest was brief. A sound split the night, the crunch of footsteps in snow, slow, deliberate, circling above the bridge. Rex's head snapped up, teeth bared. Ava stirred, clutching Jacob's sleeve. Jacob's eyes opened, sharp and clear. His hand found the knife again. They weren't alone. The fire crackled faintly, its glow painting gold across stone and bone. Jacob Flynn kept still, listening, every sense stretched thin. Above the bridge, footsteps crunched in snow, deliberate, circling, hunting. Rex bristled, his growl low, eyes locked upward. The dog's body shifted into readiness, head low, shoulders coiled, tail stiff. Ava stirred beside him, clutching her doll tighter, her voice a whisper, meant only for Jacob. "Is it them again?" Jacob laid a steadying hand on her small shoulder. "Could be," he said softly. "But we're ready." His tone wasn't bravado. It was a soldier's truth. Prepared or not, you move forward. The footsteps paused, silence dropping heavy. Then a voice drifted down, rough as gravel. "Cold night to light a fire." Jacob's jaw clenched. Not the same men as before. This one carried no mockery, only hunger and something worse. Rex's growl deepened, a rumble like storm thunder. Jacob gave a subtle hand signal. "Hold. Watch." The dog stilled, but his eyes never left the shadows above. "Stay with Rex," Jacob whispered to Ava, placing his pack behind her as a makeshift wall. He rose to his feet, knife in hand, firelight glinting along the blade's edge. "Show yourself," Jacob called. His voice was calm, steady, the kind of calm that unsettles men who expect fear. Snow dislodged, fell in powder drifts, and then a figure leaned over the broken guardrail. A man in a ragged parka, hood up, face hidden. His hands rested on the rail, but Jacob saw the glint of steel near his belt. "You're carrying too much for just you," the man said. "The dog, the girl, supplies, we could share." Jacob's grip tightened. "Or you could walk away?" The man chuckled, the sound thin. Not much to walk to out here. Behind Jacob, Ava whispered into the doll's ear, as if telling its secrets too heavy for the world. He glanced once, saw her tiny shoulders shaking, and forced his voice harder. "You step down here," Jacob said, "and Rex won't give you a second chance." As if on cue, Rex snarled, teeth flashing white in the firelight. The man's hood shifted as he looked at the dog, and for the first time Jacob caught a glimpse of his face. Gaunt, eyes rimmed red from cold or sickness. The man spat into the snow. "Keep your fire," he muttered, voice cracking. "It'll burn out. They all do." He turned, boots dragging, and his figure melted into the storm. The sound of his steps faded until only wind remained. Jacob didn't breathe until Rex's growls softened to a low hum. He lowered the knife, but didn't sheathe it. "Are they gone?" Ava asked. "For now," Jacob said. He knelt beside her, brushing a stray lock of tangled hair from her eyes. "But that's the world, Ava. Some walk past, some don't. What matters is we stand together." She nodded, though her small hand trembled as she tucked the doll under her chin again. "Rex scared him," she whispered, stroking the dog's fur. "Rex saves me more than I save him," Jacob admitted. He met the dog's steady gaze, and for a moment, man and animal shared the weight of what it meant to keep watch in a broken world. The night pressed on. Jacob doused the fire before dawn, unwilling to risk another visit. They packed in silence, Ava's eyes heavy but determined, Rex's nose testing every breath of air. The road stretched white and endless when they emerged from under the bridge. Snow fell slower now, light catching like stars. Ava walked beside Rex this time, her small boots sinking into his paw prints. Jacob watched them, something in his chest softening against the cold. She hummed again, the same melody she had sung on the road when he first found her. Fragile, cracked, but steady. Jacob's steps matched her rhythm, and for the first time in years, he realized he wasn't walking into silence anymore. By midday, Jacob spotted the outline of a farmhouse, half buried, leaning like a tired sentinel. Smoke no longer rose from its chimney, but its walls stood. Shelter, maybe? "We'll rest there," he said. Ava nodded, clutching her doll, eyes brightening at the thought of anything with a roof. As they approached, Rex stiffened, his pace slowing. His ears cut back, nose working the air. Jacob saw it too, tracks in the snow fresh, circling the house. Human. He gestured Ava close, lowering his voice. "Behind me." She obeyed without question, sliding a hand into Rex's fur for courage. Jacob moved forward, rifle lifted now, scanning the farmhouse windows for movement. They reached the porch. The door hung half open, swinging faintly on rusted hinges. Jacob froze, senses flaring. Then from inside came a sound that froze the air in his lungs. A child's laugh. Ava's eyes widened, her lips parting. "Another kid," she whispered. Rex's ears snapped forward, his body tense. Jacob felt the weight of decision press hard on his chest. It could be real. It could be bait. He glanced at Ava, her face alive with something he hadn't seen before, hope. "Stay behind me," he repeated, voice low, then stepped onto the porch. Rex, a shadow at his side, Ava's small breath, trembling behind them. The farmhouse door creaked wider on its own. The farmhouse door swung open with a hollow groan, the sound swallowed quickly by the storm outside. Jacob Flynn froze at the threshold, his rifle angled, every muscle locked into vigilance. Rex stood half a step ahead, ears sharp, body low, his growl faint but steady, a warning threaded through the silence. Behind them, Ava clutched her doll so tightly that porcelain pressed into her skin. Her eyes were wide, shimmering with both fear and hope. She had heard laughter, something Jacob hadn't heard in years without it being memory or hallucination. Inside, shadows stretched long across the warped floorboards. Dust motes swirled through a shaft of grey light where the roof sagged. The faint scent of wood smoke lingered, old but not ancient. Then came the sound again, A laugh, high, fleeting, childlike. It danced from one corner of the room to the next, too alive for a house long dead. Jacob raised his free hand behind him, palm open. "Stay back." Ava pressed against the doorframe, Rex's flank shielding her. The canine advanced with Jacob, nails whispering against the wood. "Hello?" Jacob called, voice even, though his breath was tight. "We're not here to hurt anyone." Silence. Then another laugh, closer, bouncing from the walls. Jacob followed it to a small room off the main hall. He pushed the door gently, revealing an old radio, its dial cracked, sitting on a crate. The speaker sputtered weakly, coughing out scraps of a broadcast that had long since collapsed. The laugh wasn't from a child at all. It was a fragment of a recording, stuck on repeat, warped by static. Ava peeked around Jacob's side, her face falling. "It's not real," she whispered, her voice breaking. "It's not another kid." Jacob lowered his rifle, exhaling hard. "No," he said. "But it fooled me too." Rex circled the crate, sniffing, then settled into a sit with a grunt, as if unimpressed by ghosts. Jacob crouched by the radio, turning the dial. Static filled the air, then silence. For a moment, the world seemed emptier than before. Ava's small shoulders shook, but she didn't cry. Instead, she whispered into her doll's ear again, secrets Jacob wasn't meant to hear. He straightened, scanning the rest of the house. It was bare. A tipped chair, shattered glass, a table scarred by fire. Nothing lived here. Nothing but echoes. "Sometimes the past plays tricks," Jacob said softly. "It makes us hear what we miss the most." Ava's eyes flicked up at him, searching. "Do you hear them too, your family?" Jacob's jaw clenched. The locket against his chest felt heavier than ever. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but I don't mistake it for now." She studied him, then nodded as though she understood more than a child should. "Then I'll keep singing. That way Daddy will know I'm still here." Her words cut deep, pulling memory to the surface. Micah's voice, laughing over the sound of gunfire. "If we're still breathing, we're still singing." Jacob swallowed hard and turned away. They made camp in the farmhouse anyway, despite its ghosts. The walls held the wind better than the bridge had. Jacob lit a small fire in the hearth, feeding it careful strips of wood, scavenged from broken chairs. Ava curled close to Rex, humming to the doll in her arms. For a moment, Jacob let himself watch. A child, a dog, the fragile glow of firelight, 3 pieces of life, stitched together in defiance of a world that wanted to tear them apart. He sat back against the wall, cleaning his knife with slow strokes. His mind returned, unwilling, to the men who had tried to take Ava on the road. They would not stop. Hunger and cruelty never did. And now he carried more than himself. The fire hissed as snow slid from the roof. Ava's hum faded into sleep. Rex shifted closer to her, his body forming a wall of warmth and vigilance. Jacob leaned his head back against the wall, eyes closing for just a moment. He woke to the sound of glass shattering. Rex was already up, silent as a blade, his teeth bared. Ava bolted upright, clutching her doll, eyes wide in terror. Jacob's hand found his rifle even before his legs carried him forward. He scanned the dark, shadows leaping with the firelight, and caught it, a shape moving past the window, fast, deliberate, not a ghost, not an echo. Real. A voice followed, low and sharp. "We know you're in there, soldier. Saw the smoke. You can't keep her." Jacob's blood turned to ice. Ava gasped, pressing into Rex's fur. He tightened his grip on the rifle, jaw set. "They've found us," he whispered. And the farmhouse, once a shelter, became a cage. The farmhouse walls groaned as the wind pressed against them, but the sounds outside weren't the storms. Boots shuffled in snow, metal scraped against the porch railing. Voices moved low, circling, predators who had caught a scent. Jacob Flynn shifted into position by the window frame, rifle steady. Rex crouched near the door, a silent shadow, his body taut with readiness. Ava huddled in the corner, the cracked porcelain doll pressed to her chest, her lips trembling against the words of a song she didn't quite dare to sing. "Stay quiet," Jacob mouthed. She nodded, though her wide eyes told him she wanted to cry out. From outside, a man's voice rang clearer. "Soldier, we saw the tracks. We know you've got the girl. Hand her over, and maybe we let you live." Jacob's grip tightened on the rifle. The audacity twisted something inside him. He called back, voice low but firm. "She's not yours to take." Laughter answered, harsh and hollow. Snow crunched as boots mounted the porch. Rex's growl rolled through the room like distant thunder. Jacob gave the hand signal, "Hold, wait!" and the dog froze, teeth gleaming in the firelight. The first shadow darkened the doorway. Jacob fired once, the rifle's crack shaking the walls. The man stumbled back into the snow, cursing, his shoulder painting the white crimson. Shouts erupted, more footsteps rushing now. A window shattered, shards spraying across the floor. Ava screamed, shrinking against the wall, clutching her doll tighter. Jacob pivoted, firing again, forcing a second intruder back into the storm. "Rex, go!" The canine launched like a bullet, slamming through the doorway into the nearest attacker. A scream split the night as Rex's jaws found flesh. Jacob surged forward, rifle raised, covering the dog as shadows scattered in panic. Snow whirled through the broken glass, stinging Ava's face. She rocked on her heels, whispering over and over, "Daddy, help! Daddy, help!" Her voice cracked, but it didn't stop. It became a plea woven into the howl of the wind. Jacob fought with the rhythm of a man who had done this too many times, each shot precise, each movement measured. But when one of the men lunged through the window, knife flashing, Jacob's strength faltered for a heartbeat. His boot slipped on broken glass. The blade came close, too close, and then a sound cut through it all. Ava's small voice, louder now, stronger, carrying through the firelight and snow. "Don't let him be alone like me." The words froze Jacob's blood, clearer than any command he'd ever received. His body moved before thought, rifle up, shot, fired. The attacker dropped, knife clattering across the floor. Rex returned, muzzle stained, standing over another man who fled, limping into the dark. The farmhouse fell into silence again, broken only by Ava's sobs and the storm's low moan. Jacob lowered the rifle, chest heaving. His eyes found Ava's, wet, pleading, fierce despite the fear. He crossed the room in 2 strides, kneeling before her. "I won't," he said, the promise burning through every syllable. "You'll never be left alone again." She pressed the doll against his chest, as if entrusting it to him. "Then you're my soldier now." Jacob closed his hand over hers, porcelain cool beneath their fingers. He felt Rex press against his leg, the dog's weight steady, grounding. The farmhouse smelled of smoke and blood, of broken glass and firelight. But in the center of it, 3 lives had braided into one. Jacob looked at the ruined doorway, the snow already covering the men's tracks. He knew they couldn't stay. Yet in Ava's whisper, in Rex's unyielding stance, he felt something he thought he had buried forever. Reason. Reason to walk forward, reason to fight again, reason to hope. "Pack up," he said softly, brushing Ava's tangled hair from her face. "We leave at dawn. Together." The dawn was brittle, a thin slice of light cutting across the snow. Smoke still curled from the broken farmhouse chimney, mixing with the tracks of men who would not return. Jacob Flynn stood in the doorway, rifle slung, eyes scanning the horizon. Rex pressed against his leg, steady as ever, his breath clouding the morning air. Behind them, Ava shuffled out, wrapped in the soldier's oversized coat. Her doll peeked from under the blanket, cracked face turned toward the sun. She blinked into the light, as if trying to remember what warmth looked like. Jacob crouched to meet her gaze. "We walk north today. There's a place we can rest, with people who will look after you." She tilted her head, studying him. "And you?" "I'll get you there," he said simply. She seemed to accept that, but Rex huffed once, as if reminding him that getting her there wasn't the same as leaving her. Jacob ruffled the dog's ears, lips tightening. They set out. The road wound through fields, swallowed by snow. Ava walked between Jacob and Rex, her small boots sinking into their tracks. When she tired, Jacob carried her, feeling the fragile weight against his chest, her breath warming the cold edge of his collar. She hummed sometimes, the same tune she had sung when he first found her. By midday, the spire of the outpost rose from the trees, an old church turned refuge. Smoke curled from its chimney. Figures moved along the gate, bundled against the cold. Ava's eyes widened. "Is this where Daddy is?" she asked, clutching the doll. Jacob's throat closed. He set her down gently in the snow, kneeling to her height. "This is where people remember him. Where they'll remember you too." She frowned, not fully understanding, but nodded anyway. As they approached, a woman at the gate waved them in. Her voice carried, warm despite the frost. "You found her?" Jacob stiffened. "You knew?" The woman nodded. "Word spread. A medic's daughter left alone after the fires. We prayed someone would find her." Her eyes softened on Ava. "Thank God it was you." Ava peeked from behind Jacob's leg. "Can we stay here?" The woman knelt, smiling. "You can." Jacob felt Ava's small hand slip into his. He looked down, startled. Her eyes were wet but fierce. She leaned close, whispering words that struck deeper than any blade. "Please don't leave me. You're my dad now." The air punched from Jacob's lungs. His knees hit the snow before he knew it, the rifle sliding from his shoulder. His hands trembled as he pulled her against him, the doll wedged between them. For the first time in years he let the tears fall, hot against the frozen air, carving tracks through a face weathered by loss. Rex pressed his head against Jacob's arm, as if sealing the vow unspoken. Jacob closed his eyes, holding Ava as tightly as he dared. "Never," he whispered, "I'll never leave you." And for the first time since war had taken everything, Jacob Flynn smiled, a broken, healing smile, because in her whisper, in Rex's steadfast eyes, he had found something worth more than survival. He had found family again.